The WrestleCast is glad to get a hold of Jake Kadel, who is not only a four-time place winner for New London at the Iowa State Wrestling Tournament, but has went on to participate at the University of Iowa Wrestling Room, where he learned his craft to the point he has gone on to become one of the premier wrestling coaches in Iowa, and now he's at William Penn University. There's a lot to talk about here, so we hope we can have several interviews with Jake throughout the year. Kind of give our listeners your wrestling resume and share some of the experiences you had in that Iowa wrestling room. And as a side note, just how influential was Mark Cherry and Brian Swafford in your development, and kind of give us how the New London Wrestling Room prepared you for the rigors of the Iowa Wrestling Room.
In the New London Wrestling Room, they had obviously a rich tradition there. They've had a lot of really good wrestlers coming out of that program in the past, and I was very fortunate to be in a position where I had really good role models to look up to. My freshman year, we probably had one of the best senior classes to go through New London there to look up to. You know, we had Johnny Siegel, state champ. Jarrett Cherry was a state champ. We had Jake Lurdle, he was a state champ. And then we had Josh Allen was in there too, multiple-time placer. Jaden Allen was in there. He was those individuals and looked up to them a lot. And then, I think just coming from a small school too, we had to learn to work hard. You know, we didn't have like all of the maybe big city opportunities for the newest in technique or whatnot, I guess you could say, from like maybe bigger schools might have more of an advantage in that aspect of things. So we kind of obviously had to rely on hard work and things like that. So I would say a lot of that stuff kind of put me in a good position. And then ultimately, at Iowa, it was just a good fit for me all around for everything that I was looking for. You know, in sixth grade is kind of when I started going up there for club practices and things like that. So I was in there for a little bit, and then we ended up moving up to Cedar Rapids. But that, and then like obviously my plan was to go to medical school. They had a good med school there, and it was close to home. It was in the state of Iowa. They had obviously one of the best programs in the country, so that was attractive. And then you got the best coaches in the world there too. So pretty much it had everything that was appealing to me. And but yeah, just during your time there, we made a lot of really good relationships with people there. And I think just within the coaching world, I'd say the University of Iowa has a lot of the top wrestling coaches in the country have came from the University of Iowa, so just having those wrestling connections, and then just the mindset that we learned during our time there ultimately kind of put us in a good spot for where we're at doing what we do now kind of deal.
We're kind of focusing on women's wrestling a little bit with this WrestleCast. So I do have a question about Iowa, and I'm just relying on your experience here. Iowa women's wrestling is still in its relative infancy as far as high school and collegiate. So, but more and more teams are offering the opportunity to women. Can you give me a timetable in your mind about how long it will take for Iowa to have the kind of women's wrestling program that maybe equates to Iowa men's wrestling? I mean, that's one of the top programs in the whole nation, but Iowa loves its wrestling. And what do you think is in the future for Iowa women's wrestling?
I'd say high school wise, it obviously is continuing to skyrocket with numbers and things like that, so in that aspect of things, it's getting a lot bigger. There's a lot more opportunities at the college level too now with JUCOs, D3s, D2s, NAIA, and then really University of Iowa is the only D1 program kind of that's relevant, I guess, D1 wise right now. So I think just overall in the state is going to continue to grow. The competitiveness within the girls is going to get a lot more technical, I guess you could say. And, they got a lot of really good girls coming up through the ranks right now. So, overall, I think, it'll be in a good spot here within the next couple of years. But university wise, I don't foresee there being another big school like the University of Iowa, I guess you could say, that will be popping up anytime soon, supposedly. So at least within supposedly, I wouldn't think there'll be another Power 5 school within minimum of 5 years at least.
Well, that leads me to what I had right underneath that question, and you kind of answered it already, so I'll just throw the question out for you. It says, Iowa, on my list of papers, says, Iowa is the first Power 5 program to offer women's wrestling, so based on your experience on the recruiting trail, is others soon to follow? And it sounds like they will follow, but just not maybe as quickly as I thought.
Yeah, for sure. And really the only reason why Iowa has a women's wrestling program now is because they had a Title IX lawsuit. And so they had to add a women's program, I believe. And then Iowa women's wrestling was kind of it was being talked about, I think. And so that's kind of why I think it got added. But obviously there's a big financial hurdle for a lot of institutions to try to add women's wrestling, I believe, just from my understanding, at the Division I level. And so I think from what I've heard, that's kind of why. But yeah, recruiting wise, I mean, obviously it's tough to recruit against that just because they can pick from the cream of the crop kind of deal, so.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm going to refer you to another question. It's kind of along those lines as well, and I have to go back into my history a bit. And about 25 years ago, I was working for Voice of the Hawkeyes magazine, and I was writing a feature for the magazine that was on women's basketball and its progress. And I talked to a few Division I coaches, and Angie Lee and Bill Finley were the two most prominent from Iowa, and they both kind of assured me that, give 20, 25 years, that the women's game would be as popular as the men's game. And now that you got Caitlin Clark, I didn't, I wrote it down. I didn't know if I really believed that, but now you got Caitlin Clark and you got Angel Reese, and they turned out to be right. So maybe 25 years is the timetable. Can you see sort of the same evolution for women's wrestling? I have watched a few things on YouTube. I really enjoyed it. So do you kind of see that maybe taking some baby steps, but if we're having the same conversation in 2048, let's say, do you see women's wrestling turning out to be that big eventually?
Yeah, for sure. I hope it's sooner than that, but yeah, I definitely could see that for sure. I think I even saw a stat recently, like something about women's sports, like the viewership for women's athletics or something along those lines is like tenfold now of what it was like 10 years ago or something like that. So it's obviously it's taken off big time, which is awesome.
Just to kind of change directions just a bit, we're going to get back to women's wrestling, but our listeners would be really interested to know something that maybe they don't know already. You used to coach at Iowa Wesleyan, and full disclosure here, I was a student at Iowa Wesleyan, so I kind of know what's going on here. Well, I was heartbroken to see that the school closed, and I don't have inside sources, but I kind of heard through the grapevine that you were on a recruiting trip at the time, and your phone rang, and you kind of found out that the school was closing and you were going to be out of a job. So just take our listeners through those 24 hours right after that announcement. That had to be heartbreaking and discouraging at the same time.
Yeah, it was, almost surreal at first, and I didn't believe it at first, But yeah, I was supposed to go meet with the recruit later that day at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and then, I think 8 a.m. or something like that, I got a phone call saying to check my email, and then, like I said, I'm not very good at checking my email, but so I had to check my email, and I saw that we were supposed to have an emergency staff meeting, and I actually missed that meeting because I wasn't anticipating that, obviously, and so I ended up, because I was living in Iowa City at the time, and so I ended up driving back down. We had a team meeting right away, and I think the students found out about an hour right after we did. So I think our meeting was supposed to be at 8, and then the students had a meeting at 9 o'clock, I believe. And then we had obviously like an emergency team meeting at 10 o'clock right after that. So, but yeah, it was kind of hectic, just trying to calm everybody down and stay optimistic that that it's just kind of hearsay, and that maybe we potentially had the opportunity to still try to fix things or figure out a way to keep the school afloat kind of deal. But obviously I didn't know all the details. I still don't, but turns out it was kind of like too far gone kind of deal. So, but yeah, so that was kind of my experience with it, but ultimately it kind of worked out. for us, in the grand scheme of things. So we had a lot of really good support and things like that there. So, and obviously it was traumatic for the students too, because they went through 2-3 years of school there, and that was kind of their home. And then you got to kind of pick up and relocate. And then even some of our kids, I think, are still struggling with that a little bit, So, yeah, definitely was not a good situation overall.
Okay. This is more for me just being interested in the sport. You were coaching both the men's and women's at Iowa Wesleyan. And if I'm right, and tell me if I'm wrong, now you just focus on the women's side of wrestling?
Yep.
Okay.
Right now is like full-time for the women's side of things, but I try to still help out on the men's side of things as much as possible. I actually just got done wrestling with one of the guys. So, obviously our plate's pretty full on the women's side of things, but still want to try to help out just overall as much as we can in any aspect of the school or just wrestling in general,
And with women, again, help me out if I'm wrong, they're following the folk style, correct? And men do
freestyle.
Okay, they do freestyle, and
yep.
The men do folk style. You're a former wrestler. You've been doing, I'm sure you did both in tournaments and whatnot, but was that a hard adjustment to, as far as strategy or technique or anything else?
Not really. I was out the freestyle scene for a little bit, so it took a little bit more to get back into that a little bit, but out of college, we focused. I helped coach a little bit out of college, but it was all folk style. But so yeah, just getting back into the swing of things for freestyle a little bit. But yeah, I started doing freestyle my freshman year of high school, and then obviously we wrestled that all through college too, and then just kind of continuing to study and learn from other people and things like that, And that's another good thing about us is we got really good mentors and things like that we can pick people's brains about things. So yeah, overall it wasn't a big change or anything.
Okay. Jake, we're getting close to kind of a deadline here. So I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. And one of them has to do with one of your fantastic performers, Mia Palumbo. How do you pronounce that? Palumbo?
Yep, Palumbo.
Okay. So according to the latest ratings that I saw, Iowa, NAIA is kind of their bread and butter as far as women's wrestling goes. It's Iowa's rated number 1 in NCAA, but when you get to NAIA, we got William Penn, Grandview. Who else was really good? Oh God, I had it on paper.
Yeah, in the state of Iowa, NAIA.
Was it Upper Iowa that was really good?
Yeah, they're decent. They're D2 though.
Oh, okay.
But they just started a women's program this year, I think, and so I think they only have like 3 girls, unfortunately. But D2, yeah, I should probably know this, but I don't even remember off the top of my head. I remember Grandview. That's the only one I know.
Oh, maybe. No, they're not. Wartburg was good, but that's NCAA 3.
Yeah,
so.
they're D3. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask, and you kind of have answered in your own way. Since Iowa's in the mix, and that's NCAA, they can offer NIL money. Does NAIA have anything like that? Is this the wave of the future?
Yeah. So actually, future. We're getting there, but actually, the NAIA was the first division or organization, I guess, to offer NIL. They implemented NIL before the NCAA, and so I think they started it first. It was on the table kind of deal, and then the NAIA pulled the trigger first, and then I think I don't know if it was 6 to 8 months or 10 months or something later after that, the NCAA did the same thing. So. Yeah, the NIL is definitely a thing. I would say right now it's maybe not a little more prominent at the NCAA level, more for men's athletics. Women's is probably, I don't know how far behind, but I'm sure there's still obviously opportunities for that. But we haven't really gotten into that too much yet, but that's definitely an avenue that we got to kind of figure out, whether that's fundraising or whatever that looks like. And I'm kind of learning the ropes a little bit to that too. So, but yeah, like I said, we got some good people that we can talk to figure out how that stuff works. But we're kind of getting there a little bit, but obviously with the transition, we kind of had to restart. and just kind of getting to meet people and things like that here too. So, but yeah, it's definitely on the discussion of things.
Okay. Finally, you were lucky to have Mia kind of on standby. But Jake, can you kind of tell the listeners how? She started at Wesleyan with you, then she followed you to William Penn, and we're not talking a locally good wrestler. We're talking a nationally good wrestler, maybe even Olympic caliber wrestler. So can you kind of tell us how she became part of the Wesleyan program and then followed you, and kind of tell us what her future holds for her?
Yeah, I would say we just kind of had another phone call actually earlier today about her too. But we just recruited her like anybody else. I just remember specifically she was the best girl in high school her senior year, and so that was kind of right when I first started getting into recruiting and stuff. And then I saw like a post on what was on Flow Wrestling. There was a post about Mia Palumbo list her top 5 schools, and actually William Penn was on one of them. And I was like, how the heck is William Penn on there? Coincidentally, actually. I was like, how the heck is that school on her list? So yeah, I tried to get a hold of her, and then I remember I watched she wrestled on this rooftop venue thing. It was like a big promotional. I watched her wrestle in that, and I was like, holy smokes, this girl's tough, man. Like, just the way that she competed, like, she was super physical and had just unbelievable technique, so I was like, we got to get this girl. So I remember that was kind of my first memory of her at first, and then obviously just with the recruiting process, we're just got to stay diligent on it a little bit, and it worked out. I think she committed maybe in December of her senior year, and so yeah, and then she ended up at Iowa Wesleyan, and then obviously it hasn't been an easy road for her, but and then on top of that, you throw the school closing down at Iowa Wesleyan, and so it's just overall it hasn't been easy. But yeah, we ended up here at William Penn, and it's been good so far. So, but yeah, obviously her future, her goals are to make the Olympic team, and be an Olympic champion. So that's that's what we train for, and that's the plan. And so, as a staff, we got to find a way to put her in a position to accomplish those goals, so we've been kind of brainstorming and thinking about that. And so yeah, that's kind of where we're at now, but we're hoping we can keep her around for a couple extra years to help coach with us and things like that, and then her plan is to go to PT school. So
physical therapy, right?
Yep.
Well, you've got a medical background, so you can help her with that.
Yeah, and I think she wants to go to UNC, so coincidentally, one of my good buddies, he's the associate head coach there at UNC. So I think we got some good connections where we can get her in there.
Well, is it fair to say that if people were to go to Oskaloosa and check out Mia, that they would be seeing kind of the Spencer Lee of the NAIA?
Yeah, yep, most definitely. And she might be even a little tougher.
I'm not going to tell Spencer you said that. Well, do you still have her on the?
I'll tell you that.
Do you still have her on the phone?
Yep.
Okay, I'll just ask her maybe a question or two. Mia, you there?
Hello.
Hey, Mia, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm good. My name's Shane Barron. Jake used to be at my school. I'm a teacher there, and we're starting a new venture here. It's called the WrestleCast. We just dropped our first episode Sunday night, and it was about an hour and 20 minutes, and we were thinking of ideas for this next episode, and we thought we'd focus on women's wrestling. And so I know Jake, and I know you're really good, so are you ready for maybe 2 or 3 questions?
Yes.
Okay. So
Very talkative.
we need you to just blather on for a while if you can. So, Mia, I know that you're from Oak Lawn, Illinois, and your coach has kind of told us how you got to Iowa, but how did you become so good at Oak Lawn?
I started wrestling when I was pretty young, and my dad coached me all the way through high school, so I think that had a big part to do with it. I wrestled at a club called Victory Elite, and there's a lot of high-level athletes there. I think just training hard really all year round is how we got to where I am today.
What we're finding here in Iowa, at least at the local level, is there are a few girls that are interested in getting involved in wrestling, but there's nobody to really wrestle against, so they just kind of lose interest. Did you kind of have, Oaklawn's near Chicago, so it's maybe a different situation, but did you have a little bit of that problem growing up?
When I was growing up, I didn't really wrestle against the girls, so I just competed against guys all the way through high school until college, then I started wrestling the women.
Did any of those guys turn out to be high school champs or guys that went on to college, and maybe you beat them when you were...
Yeah.
Can you drop some names?
I mean, the person who won my bracket my freshman year was Dean Hamidi. I've wrestled with Vincent Robinson. He goes to NC State. I've wrestled against Jesse Mendez. I've wrestled against a bunch of those guys, yeah.
And how'd you fare when you wrestled against them?
Not great.
What's that?
I didn't do too great.
Well,
just being in the room with some of them as well just was a great opportunity.
Well, the names you just dropped are NCAA All-American type names, so I wouldn't sell yourself short on what you said. I was not doing so great against them. That's pretty impressive. You're ranked number 1, if I read what I read correctly, and you've been in the national finals twice in a row, and you're a junior now. What are your goals for this year?
Well, I have U.S. Nationals coming up, so hope to do pretty well there. And then just Nationals at the end of the year as well. I want to win that.
Okay, you said you were interested in physical therapy a little bit. What kind of things do women wrestlers train? You know, it can't be all bulk. It has to be cardio. Can you kind of take us through what a women training regiment looks like?
For me, at least, I know I lift like about 2 days a week, and I'll do cardio maybe once or twice a week before practices, and then every day other than that, I've been wrestling.
I am at the 25-minute mark of this, and that's kind of my deadline. So I do appreciate you stopping by and talking to us at the WrestleCast, and we hope to get a hold of your coach and you in the future and kind of see how the season's going. Does that be okay?
Yes, sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Mia. That's Mia Palumbo, number 1 ranked at 109, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, she's the number 1 ranked wrestler, female, in NAIA at 109. And we look for big things to happen for her and Coach Jake Kadel of the William Penn Statesman. So I appreciate your time, both of you.